Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Society of Santa Barbara. I don't know what it is, but you all look particularly awake this morning, this bright February morning. Welcome to you all. Welcome to you all here in this physical sanctuary. Welcome to you who are joining us in our online sanctuary, this big community, this church without walls, the way we gather now each and every week. I'm the Reverend Julia Hamilton, and I'm delighted to have you here with us this morning. Delighted to welcome you to this hour together, especially if you are visiting or new, friends and family joining us from near and far. We would love to get to know you better. So if you'd like to stick around after the service online for our virtual coffee hour, or in the courtyard and parish hall for a cup of coffee and tea, there's a welcome table there where you can sign in so we can keep in touch. We have a virtual connection card and a little yellow connection card here. You can drop into the offertory plate when it comes around, because we would love to find out who you are and let you know who we are so that we can get connected. We are a loving community of seekers, and here we strive to live with integrity, nurture wonder, and inspire the actions that transform us and transform the world. We have a lot of things going on in this congregation as we head into this February, this end of winter, beginning of spring, and I want to highlight just a few of them. This Tuesday night at 7 o'clock is the second of our Good Things Growing series. This is our forum about good things that are happening here in our community, and this time we're gathering to talk about death. But not like death, but death as part of living and part of understanding who we are as human beings. So if you are longing to have this rich conversation about living and dying, please join Ed Bastian and the Reverend Kristen Rahm, who's a chaplain with hospice, at 7 o'clock on Tuesday evening. We also have a couple of new groups getting started this spring. Our next session of Beloved Conversations is in signups through this month. This is our Unitarian Universalist adult religious exploration curriculum about anti-racism work and undoing oppression in our lives. It's a fantastic online curriculum accessible to everyone wherever you are. And we do have support, some financial support available. So if you'd like to enroll and try out Beloved Conversations or go through it again, maybe you've already gone through it, but you'd like to do it a second time, talk to Charla Brigante, our Director of Lifespan Religious Exploration, and she can help you out. She's right over there. We also are starting up our Courageous Aging Circles this February. So if you're interested in joining with a small group of folks on Sunday after services to talk about what it means to age together in our society, you can also talk to Charla and stop by the Religious Exploration table in Parish Hall. We are getting ready to go on a multi-general trip to Hopi, back to the Hopi Reservation to visit our friends that we have been cultivating relationships with. And I'd like to invite a special guest with us this morning, Cheryl Marzak. Go ahead and stand, Cheryl, and wave. Yes, a lot of you know who Cheryl is. We've been working with Cheryl now for 12 years as our host and connection on the Hopi and Navajo reservations. And Cheryl is here to work with our travelers this year to talk about a cultural orientation and to help us raise some funds for the trip. So if you want to stop by the table, there are some beautiful art from Hopi and Navajo folks who you can take home and help raise money for the trip. So beauty and justice all together. Go visit Cheryl at the table out there. And we will also be selling truffles for Valentine's Day next Sunday. So buy some chocolate next week. And finally, we have a fantastic event happening at 11:30 after the service today. So you'll have time to get coffee and then the Justice Cafe. So I'd like to invite Anna to come forward with an invitation for you.
Hello. Representing Beauty and Justice here. It's my pleasure to invite you at 11:30 to join us in Parish Hall after the other activities have subsided to learn about the work that has been done by the Justice and Equity team, but as or more importantly, to invite you to share your passions, your interests, and to see if there are others in the room or in the community who share those passions and interests for justice and equity, and make the connection so that you can be in community and collaborate and work together to make your visions come true. So we have been meeting online on Friday mornings, and we realize that not everybody can do that. And so we would like to provide this opportunity and another one later in March for you to come in person, and I apologize to those of you online, but to come in person and share your ideas with us and with each other, most importantly, and make those connections. Thank you very much.
Our Justice and Equity team has been doing amazing work, and you'll be hearing a little bit more about some of that work a little later on in the service. And there'll be snacks, very important. I invite you all now to take a breath, to allow yourself to arrive in this space with so much going on here and in the world and in each of your lives. Give yourself the gift of this hour. Be present fully here in this community, this loving community, as we ring our bell and let the sound connect us.
I'd like to invite the Warner family to come help with the lighting of our chalice this morning. And most specifically, Joy. Ah, getting cold feet. There we go. For our chalice lighting words this morning, I'd like to read a little bit of something from Rumi. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. May the light of this flame illuminate those barriers and help free us to love and be loved. May it kindle a flame like a candle in our hearts.
Thank you. Every week after we light our chalice, we take a moment to lift up some change for the good that we see in the world. It can be an overwhelming world we live in. And this practice every week of noticing places where we are turning toward more love has been transformative for me, and I hope it's been a transformative practice for you. So we have our actual change jar over here. If there's something in your life or in the world you've noticed and you want to write it down and add it to our change for the good jar, we're going to be collecting these all year long. You can write it down in the chat as well. And for our collective contribution to the change jar, I want to lift up a change that's been happening gradually, but is still a proof that we can do big things as a world when we put our mind to it. In 1987, we signed the Montreal Protocol, which addressed the hole in the ozone layer. Do y'all remember that? When this was a huge crisis facing our world, that the chemicals we were using were causing the ozone layer to thin, particularly over the poles, and we came together as a world community and banned the chemicals that were causing this, and slowly the Earth's ozone layer has been healing. We've given the Earth the space to breathe and heal itself, and it is expected to be fully healed by 2066. So it takes time sometimes, but I love this because it reminds me that we can, in fact, come together to make a difference for our survival when we put our minds to it. Let us now join together in song this morning. We're going to sing number 124. Please rise in body and spirit so we can sing Be That Guide.
Be that guide who love sustains, rise above the daily strife. Lift on high the good you'll find.
So this is the first Sunday of February, and that means we get to do something fun, which is celebrate all of the February birthdays in our congregation. On the first Sunday of the month, of course, we do our birthday blessing. So if you have a February birthday and you would like to come forward and let us send you some, I know it's a short month, but somebody must have been born in February. There we go. And we've got a few folks who have our pictures here. So let's go ahead and show our February birthday video while we bring our folks forward. And then we're going to hand out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass this microphone down the row, and if you just want to say your name, and you can say the day you were born or how old you are, that's always optional. And then we're going to give you our birthday star sticker to wear all morning long. And then at the end of this, we're going to send all of our love towards these fine folks.
Thank you very much. I'm Mike Hackett, and I'll be 76 on February 21st.
I'm Barbara Maxwell, and I'll be 88 on February 20th. And I'm sure they made a mistake in my birth date because I don't believe it.
I'm Joni Jones, and my birthday is the 24th, and I'll be 78.
I'm Annalie, and today is my birthday. And I'm 74.
I'm Jade, and my birthday is the 19th, and I'll be 24.
My name's Maurice, and I turned 69 on February 3rd.
My name's Jay, and my birthday is February 21st, and I'll be 25.
My name is Jack. My birthday is on February 20th, and I get Medicare this month.
So let's take a minute and just send all of our love towards these fine birthday folks and everyone who's celebrating their birthday this month. May this coming year unfold for you with more joy, more love, more gratitude for this brilliant world that we share. May you have friends to laugh with you in the good times and cry with you in the hard times. The world is a richer place because you are in it, and we are so glad that you were born. Happy birthday to you all. So with those birthday blessings, let's send our kids out to their religious exploration activities. Please sing as you go. The children's recessional, the lyrics are on the screen or in your order of service.
We hold you in our love as you go, as you go. May your heart be at peace as you precious love and precious life. We hold you in our love as you go.
This morning, we're going to be reflecting on love and the way it moves through us and through our community and through this tradition of Unitarian Universalism. There is so much going on in the world that needs love and attention. So I invite us now in this moment of prayer and reflection to center ourselves, to maybe take another few breaths, to reacquaint yourself with your body, your beloved body in this space shared with other bodies wherever you are under the same sky. Maybe settle yourself where you're seated Hold your hands open in whatever way is comfortable to you. And in just a moment, we're going to sing together a reflective song called Filled with Loving Kindness. It's a very simple song that you'll probably pick up on. But before we go into the music, I'd like to invite us into that practice of getting in touch with loving kindness. Starting first with yourself, and then extending that care and compassion to your neighbors, and then extending that care and compassion out into this whole big, beautiful, and hurting world. Let us enter into a time of quiet, and then we will move into song.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May
Just 2 weekends ago, a small group of us traveled down to the border of Mexico and California on a trip to the La Cobina migrant shelter. And we brought some youth with us for this trip, the first youth volunteer group that had ever worked at the shelter. And so I've invited Quinn Hartman, one of the youth on that trip, to offer a reflection. Come on forward.
A couple of weeks ago, the youth group went on an amazing trip to the La Cabina shelter in Mexicali. Before I tell you some of the things that we did and learned, I want to thank Charlotte, Christina, and Julia for using their weekend to take us on this great trip. There were 4 people from the USSB youth group and 2 from Trinity, as well as the 5 adults. We drove to Calexico and stayed in a hotel on Saturday, and we took taxis to the border, walked through the border crossing, then took taxis to the shelter. We played games with the kids, helped with food, and gave out prizes. Then we went back across the border for the night, and we went back to make breakfast on Sunday for everyone. I thought I'd share some things that I learned. One of the activities that we helped with was origami, and I love origami, so I was happy to help. While I was helping at the origami station, I made a few paper airplanes, and I was surprised to look behind me more than 10 minutes later and see a little boy still playing with one of the paper airplanes that was covered in dirt and was ripped. All small kids like playing, even if it's in a shelter and they've been through a lot. I also learned that the seatbelts in taxis in Mexico are jammed into the seats, so you can't use them. The shelter that we went to was an LGBTQ shelter, and at least one of the families there was because their family threatened to kill them because they were part of the LGBTQ community. On a lighter note, I also learned that Applebee's pastas all come with meat, not very ideal for if you don't really like meat, but you can still order them. But you can still order them without meat if you just ask for it. Yeah. While we were at the shelter, we also helped with the painting and drawing activity. And to get the paintings to dry, we started taping them to the wall, and it quickly became a big art museum. Every place is happier with colorful artwork, especially if it's made by kids. On our second day, we helped make breakfast with the food we'd bought the day before. We were told this was a special treat because they don't usually get breakfast on Sundays, and it was great to be part of a special day. While there are a lot more stories, the main thing that I learned is that even through difficult times, these kids are still so full of joy, and they need us to care and help.
And thank you to everyone who made this trip possible and who is supporting our work with the Posada shelter. I would like to share a reading from the Reverend Bob Janis. There is a power that Rosa Parks carried with her onto that bus as she withstood the glares and threats and sat for her people. That same power was shared by children and clergy on the streets of Selma, shared by the proud drag queens of Stonewall, shared by the generations at Standing Rock. This power could not be held by Robben Island Prison or the jails of Birmingham and Concord. It was in those hands that washed the feet of the beloved in Judea, and in the hands that rescued a baby in a basket on the Nile. This power builds congregations, animates poets, nourishes the powerless, and wears down the machinery of empire on the compost heap. It is as close to us as breathing and stronger than death. We name this power as love. And we claim this love as our own calling throughout our life and with every day, to enliven our fundamental interdependence, to make our felt connection with the universe ever more beautiful, by engaging in the creative work of justice, kindness, and liberation. Love is natural and sublime, an integral part of the makeup of the cosmos. Even the stars are attracted to one another. But love in human caste is more than mere attraction. As part of the delicate balance of all life, we are called to use our powers in the service of the greatest good. Love calls us to treat as worthy every individual. Since every unique individual is to be cherished, diversity is essential and holy. Love's people are all people. Because love wants its people to be fed and safe and free and given every opportunity to blossom, love lives out loud as justice and acknowledging and then dismantling the oppressions of racism, sexism, homophobia, ableism, and all the various ways we systematically fail to cherish one another. Love calls us to a generosity of spirit. As gardeners of the good, we cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. Again and again, we let go of what holds us back, choosing forgiveness, charity, and humility, where these open-handed choices might lead us to being a part of something better and grander than any one of us can hold alone. We, the inheritors of a living and evolving tradition, covenant together to boldly live out our lives and give of ourselves for love. So ends our reading for this morning.
Well, part of our February outreach offering this month, in the month of February, is going to beloved conversations, which Julia spoke about earlier. And through this program, we as Unitarian Universalists learn how race and ethnicity shape our spiritual and social lives. And I just want to make one comment. I have been resistant to taking part in beloved conversations because I'm one of those proud Unitarians who believes that I shouldn't have to adhere to any kind of doctrine or political correctness to be a member of this congregation, right? And I'm proud of this, right? Probably many of you are. But upon reflection, I've decided that this is just too big and important of an issue, and that I need to let this issue trump my pride and my independence on how I'm going to be a member of this congregation. Does that make sense? Yes, I think it does. So I encourage you to take part in the beloved conversations and also to help us support this program financially through your contributions in each of the Sundays of the month of February. And with that, I'd like you to join me in reciting our affirmation of gratitude and giving. Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. And let us be grateful for those who share their gifts with us, for we are enriched by their giving. And let us be grateful even for our needs, so that we may learn from the generosity of others.
Thank you, choir, for that beautiful music. Good morning again. So I want to start off with a mea culpa. A mea culpa, which is an exclamation of apology and remorse. You see, about a week and a half ago, I led a Thursday evening class for our new folks who are considering what it means to become a member of this congregation. And there were about 6 people attending the class, along with Charla and myself. And it was this multi-platform class, this new format we're experimenting with some people joining us on the screen and some people in the room, so it could feel somehow like we were all in this room together. And this was the second session of the class, and some of you may have even been there, which means that we got to do this part that I especially love, something I've done many, many times before, and that is reviewing the history of Unitarian Universalism. Trying to keep it to 45 minutes or so, but I always go over. Starting way back nearly 2,000 years ago and speeding through to the present. And I'm always inspired when I do this because I love to look at our tradition with fresh eyes, telling and retelling the origin stories of people who generation after generation fought to bring this free faith to life. So why the mea culpa? Where does the remorse come in here? Well, a few days after that meeting, I started working on this service. And I was thinking about the class, and I realized I had made a terrible omission. I realized that for as much fun as I have had going through the timeline of our history over all these years, I had left something out. Something big and important, something so important I wear it on one of my stoles. Love. I had not entirely left out love, of course. I had mentioned it here and there. But in general, when I talked about our history, when I talked about the events of the past, about how people struggled for freedom of thought and why they fought for justice and equality, I never came to the heart of it. Why it matters. What is it that calls us forward into this work age after age? What animates us now and in our history? And I am more and more convinced that the beating heart of Unitarian Universalism is love. So I'm going to have to take a look at that session in our newcomers class, how I tell the story of our ancestors to pull more clearly on that thread of why it matters. Why did it matter that they fought for the freedom to speak their truth? Why did they risk their lives to overturn the orthodoxies of their day? They weren't just fighting for the principle of religious freedom or the intellectual exercise of liberal theology. In story after story, it is clear that what they were fighting for was to bring more love into a hurting and heartbreaking world, for the freedom to speak their truth in love. So if you are one of the 6 people attending that class on Thursday, or one of the many, many people who have attended that class over the years, I hope you'll accept my apology for giving love the short end of the stick. And perhaps you'll consider joining us in the future for whatever revised version I'm going to come up with. Because I am going to take some time and consider how centering love changes the way I tell the story of our history. How it might change the way I describe Unitarian Universalism to those who are seeking a spiritual home. Love, of course, is a huge topic. I could probably preach on love for the rest of my life and still have stories to tell and poems to read and songs to sing. And it's our theme for this month. So thankfully, we'll have more than one Sunday to reflect together on what this word means as individuals and as a community. But first and foremost, I want to make it clear that when I talk about love, I'm talking about much more than just a romantic emotion, of course. Perhaps I am most influenced by the writer James Baldwin's definition of love, which is tied intimately with the concept of truth and liberation. Baldwin says, "Love takes off the masks we fear we cannot live without, and know we cannot live within." I use the word love here not merely in the personal sense, but as a state of being, or a state of grace. Not in the infantile American sense of being made happy, but in the tough and universal sense of quest and daring and growth. James Baldwin describes love as intimately tied to daring and growth. Love reveals the truth at the heart of our being, Baldwin says, and that truth is not a simplistic pursuit of individual happiness, but a much tougher and more demanding call. Following the call of love leads a person into a lifelong quest, requiring constant growth and courage. Most recently, I saw love, the tough and courageous love worth building a faith around, made real in that migrant shelter in Mexicali, on that trip that Quinn shared her reflection about just a few minutes ago. La Cocina Posada del Migrante roughly translates as the migrant inn and kitchen. And we've been partnering with this shelter for almost a year through the Santa Barbara Interfaith Sanctuary Alliance and a group called Border Compassion. And some of you have heard reflections from people who've traveled there. And the shelter's roots began in 1987 when it was founded by a group of LGBTQ community members as a soup kitchen and a safe place for people to gather. Over the years, it has transformed into a shelter that welcomes all migrant families who are seeking asylum in the United States. And the heart and soul of the shelter is a woman named Altagracia Tamayo, a lesbian activist who saw a need in her community back in 1987 and has worked tirelessly ever since to bring safety and compassion to everyone who comes through their doors. I had the opportunity to speak to Altagracia for just a few minutes while we were there. And although theological discussions are frankly one of the hardest things to do in a foreign language, the idea that she communicated to me was so simple and straightforward that even I could understand it in my limited Spanish. Dios ama a todos. God loves everyone, she said. She looked me right in the eye and repeated it. Todos. Everyone. The shelter with its bright blue railings and bright pink walls with the laughter of children in the courtyard and the quieter observant adults standing in the doorways of the rooms. This shelter was a miracle wrought by the force of love. Altagracia's fierce determination to fight for the right of everyone to love and thrive. The love of the parents who carried their children hundreds or thousands of miles seeking safety and a better life. The love of the network of volunteers from all faiths who provided food and supplies, and the love of life itself, that universal and daring quest for growth that Baldwin spoke of. All of this evident at La Cocina. Altagracia and I may have different words for how we describe our religious commitments, but we could both agree that love knows no borders. No borders in a geopolitical sense or religious sense, no borders in the human heart. It is like what Bob Janis said in the reading that I shared earlier. Love's people are all people. The work we do to bring more love into the wider world is a concrete expression of what it means to center love in our religious life. But it's not just out there that we do this work. We do this work every time we gather. When we honor love with weddings and memorial services and child dedications, where we learn to love one another and create spaces for spiritual growth right here, where we learn to love ourselves, rebuilding our sense of self-worth after trauma and heartbreak. Love may not be all you need, despite what the Beatles said, but is certainly a necessity without which we cannot survive. What I should have said when newcomers ask me, what is a Unitarian Universalist, is that we are people who work to amplify the spirit of love. That's who we are. So to return for a minute to our UU history, for hundreds of years, we have struggled to put into words the values and principles that define our faith. We are, as we like to say, a living tradition, one that changes and adapts to the times, one that does not have a creed or a statement of faith at the center, but rather a way of being, an approach to the world, a way we are together, a covenant is one way of describing that way of being together. And so it turns out that about every 30 years or so, Unitarians and Universalists, which were two separate faiths at the beginning, and then Unitarians and Universalists together when we merged in 1961, every 30 years or so, we would end up re-examining and rewriting the articulation of our core values. Now, in each era, different people found slightly different ways to describe who it was and what it was Unitarians and Universalists are. They named things like theological freedom and faith in the goodness of humanity. They found new ways to talk about our responsibility to each other. And often these statements mentioned love as a guiding principle. Way back in 1894, there is this little affirmation that was written by James Villa Blake for the church in All Souls in Evanston, Illinois. And it became so widely adapted that there's still congregations that repeat this affirmation every Sunday from 1894. And it goes like this: love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Nearly 130 years later, that still sounds pretty relevant. Our most recent attempt to put into words the core values of our faith are right there in the front of that gray hymnal. They are the 7 principles that you may be familiar with. They were written in 1985. And of course, just recently, we talked about adopting an 8th principle that adds beloved community into the mix and talks about our work to undo oppression. But my friends, there's a larger conversation afoot, and it has everything to do with love. Because you see, in those 7 principles, we forgot something. Love is not mentioned anywhere in those principles. It has been in past iterations of our faith, but in the current 7 principles and even the 8th principle that we adopted, the word love is not present except through implication, right? Now, I don't want to go into all of the wonky details about how the principles were adopted in the first place and the multi-year process by which they can be changed and amended. And we're committed to a democratic process, which means it will take time and several votes by the General Assembly of Congregations. Are your eyes glazing over yet? If you're one of the few people who's leaning forward when I talk about democratic process, we'll be having more conversations outside of Sunday morning to talk about this. But I want to get back to this core question of what does love have to do with it? It's been over 30 years since we've taken a good look at the core values of our faith. And so what do Unitarian Universalists do when we see that there's something that needs to be changed, some work that we need to do in the world? Well, of course, we create a commission. The Article 2 Commission, to be precise, has been created by the Unitarian Universalist Association. Unitarian Universalist Association is a mouthful, even for me. They created this commission to look at the way we articulate the core values of our faith. And they created something that I think is quite beautiful. And it solves that omission. It puts love at the center. So I want to pull up a little graphic they created to share with you all this morning. Hot off the presses, right? They just released a draft after interviewing hundreds, if not thousands, of Unitarian Universalists and talking to congregations around the world. They lifted up words that articulated some of the values of our faith. And they put love right there in the middle. And we're going to be talking about more of this later on. We're going to be talking about interdependence and equity and generosity and justice and pluralism and transformation. And when they released this report, they included some of that beloved language from the principles that we already know, like inherent worth and dignity and the search for truth and meaning. They're in the descriptions underneath these words that they've identified. But right there at the center, the balance point of it all, I think orients us in a really wonderful direction. Now, some people describe this as a flower, but I saw it and I imagined more of a mobile, like those beautiful mobiles by Alexander Calder. I have a picture here to show you if you want to jog your memory of what those looked like. Right? If you imagine this statement like a mobile, all of our values suspended off a center point. And that center point, my friends, is love. They can be swapped out and changed, different configurations over time, but always something at the center, tying it all together. And I love this mobile image that came to mind because it's alive, right? It's in motion. It's moving with the currents of the air and yet always grounded. And in the end, what we do here at the Unitarian Society is not about words at all, but about how we live and how we love day by day, and how that love is made real in our relationships with one another, with the world, with our past, and with our future. Words will change. Words should change because our understanding grows and changes. But at the heart of it all, at the center, as long as there is love, the rest will come into balance. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen. Let us join in song one more time. You'll be no surprise at the song that I picked to close our service today, number 131, Love Will Guide Us. Please rise in body and spirit and let us sing together. Stay where you are and just put your hands over your heart, or if you have permission to hold hands with the person next to you, go ahead and do so, or hold your hands open, however it is that you get connected to that feeling of being a part of something larger than yourself, wherever you are, part of this interconnected web of all life. And as you go out into this beautiful and heartbreaking world, may the light of love shine upon you, out from within you, be gracious unto you, and bring you peace. For this is the day we are given. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Let us call out a blessing.
Call out a blessing, call out